We're live, Mr. Mayor.
We're live on it.
All right, awesome. All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Kimberley City Council for March 9th to order, held here on the homeland of the Ktunaxa peoples. So it's game day today for those of you who aren't attached. The Dynamiters are in the first round of the playoffs. They won by identical 6-1 scores on Friday and Saturday and are in Invermere tonight. So the colors are to show support for the team. We got a couple of delegations tonight, but other than that, I think we have kind of a normal agenda. So I'm not sure what the bets are for how long the meeting's going to go tonight, but it will be normal. Maurice, do we have any late items?
There's no late items, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Hearing none, could I have somebody to move? Thank you, Councillor McBain and Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I'll try and go slow enough for you, Maurice. If I'm overrunning, just let me know. All right, next up, we have the adoption of the minutes of the special meeting of council held on December the 1st. Mover, please. Councillor Fox, thank you. Councillor Roberts, seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up are the minutes of the special meeting held on February 17th. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire moves. Councillor Roberts, seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, we have the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on February the 23rd. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, the formalities are out of the way. We'll start with our first delegation this evening, which is the Kimberley and District Community Foundation. Welcome. Are we doing a tag team here?
We are not.
We're in supporting role.
Okay, awesome.
Just in case I blunder. Good evening.
There is no danger of that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Evelyn Storm, and I serve as the Vice President of the Kimberley and District Community Foundation. I'm far from a founding member like Kent is. I joined 3 years ago, and so I'm still learning my way around. We are here tonight in the 25th year of Kimberley and District Community Foundation's operation to drop off a check for the interest that has been earned on the BC Winter Games Legacy Endowment and to give council and the public a brief update on the status of the fund. In 1980, this is where I'll be a bit of a historian. In 1980, Kimberley hosted the BC Winter Games, and the monetary surplus from that event was used by the city to establish a legacy fund to support amateur sports in this community. Now, fast forward 2 decades, in 2001, a number of local residents were working to establish a community foundation in Kimberley. They learned of offers from both Columbia Basin Trust and the Vancouver Foundation to each provide up to $50,000 in matching funds to new community foundations if the organizers in those respective communities could come up with $50,000 of their own. So an agreement, kind of a unique agreement, was reached between the fledgling Community Foundation and the City of Kimberley. The $64,000 Winter Games Fund was transferred to the Community Foundation on the condition that the interest from the fund always be used to support amateur sports in Kimberley. So we established our Winter Games Endowment Fund with that money and then used the additional $100,000 received from the Columbia Basin Trust and the Vancouver Foundation as the initial capital for our community fund, which can potentially support every charity in Kimberley. All our funds are held by the Vancouver Foundation, and investment decisions are made by their team of professional investment managers. Over the years, 2 more additions to the Winter Games Fund were made from the 2008 Winter Games and then subsequently from the 2018 55+ Summer Games. And that brought the total invested capital to $109,500. From the time the Kimberley Foundation received the initial funding to this year, almost $112,000 in grants have been given out to amateur sports groups locally. And the market value of the fund has grown to over $172,000 as of December 31st, 2025. We have never, to this point, accepted donations to, nor have we been able to write charitable receipts for the Winter Games Fund because of the CRA's concerns around how the fund and its disbursements were arranged at the time. So for many years, the foundation ran the grant review process and made recommendations to the city about disbursements. More recently, the city has taken back the responsibility for vetting grant applications. The CRA's concerns have been completely allayed, and we are now finally in a position to start building the fund through public donations. This is great news. So tonight we're letting council and the public know that if anyone would like to help build this endowment for amateur sport and receive a charitable donation, we would be happy to make that happen. You can contact any one of our directors. You can send us an email. You have the email, I'm sure, in your package, or you can donate online through our webpage. So that's it for my formal comments. I just wanted to add that in the 25th year of our foundation, there's going to be a celebration. It's going to take place in the month of November. Your invitations are not in the mail, but they will be. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Wow, outstanding, Evelyn. Thank you. Councilor McBain.
Yeah, this is really good news, and I see it as an opportunity to build on what's been started. And I just can't help but reflect on today's news. Speaking of amateur sports, Callie Erickson, a local Kimberley kid, getting a couple of medals at the Paralympic Games, Olympic Games, and this is where these things start. When young athletes are looking for assistance along the way, and programs like this are invaluable. So well done, and thank you for the update. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for that, Councilor McBain. Further? You guys are doing great work. I look at that $112,000 and think of the number of things that couldn't get done if that money wasn't being dispersed, in the community. So thanks so much for all the work you guys do.
Our pleasure. Thank you for.
All right, last call. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the.
Not much support required. That was awesome.
We have a check.
We have a check. Shall we make a presentation?
Well, yeah, Pam or Krista, our Chief Financial Officer.
I want to go to.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pam.
I'm really not in it.
Oh.
Okay, you take a photo too.
I will.
Where should we stand? In front of,
Maybe stand in front
in front of the group? Up here?
Yeah.
This is Wendy, the president, just in case some of you don't know her. All right.
What should we do?
Outstanding. You guys are free to stay.
As tempted as we are.
Oh, come on.
It's hard to be that really wants to.
It's okay. We'll walk him. We'll escort him.
Thanks again for being here tonight. Good night. Okay, next up, we welcome Tim Reed back. Trying to remember, was it November? It was November when you were last here, Tim, for the preliminary report. And this would be, as it says here, the final report on the ice facility strategy. So we are anxious to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so
Take it
much
away.
for the opportunity. Do we have the deck that's loaded?
Maurice? We do.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's low. I'm just gonna share it on the screen.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to come back and present. For those of you that haven't read the 150-page report, just read the executive summary and then go back to the other pieces along the way or ask some questions this evening and we'll do our best to answer them. Do have a bit of a presentation here that we wanted to walk through. I do want to speak to the support that we received from your staff. It's always important to acknowledge when staff are transparent, accessible. Certainly want to recognize that we pestered Nick endlessly, I think, and added more gray hairs than he had going in. He had a long blonde hair when we started and now he doesn't anymore. And I would say Jim is the same. I also wanted to recognize Ilo for her work on the utilization side of things. She was magnificent. She was attentive. She responded to emails quickly, and she probably doesn't get the credit that she deserves, but she's excellent in her role and we'd really appreciate working with her. We had an opportunity to speak with the community through this process, through a number of rounds of engagement, and some folks that followed up. And I can actually say, had a wonderful email from one of your high school students who was doing their final piece of work on the economic impact of building a gymnasium. So at least somebody, I think, walked away with some new thoughts and some new answers. And so if we'll walk you through the presentation today. Some of this material is on repeat, so we'll try to be relatively quick. But if you have any questions, we're certainly happy to go back to it. From a project standpoint, just want to make sure that.
Are you going to need to move this, Maurice, or?
I'm gonna have to move it, so if you can just let
Okay.
me know. Thank you.
Yep. If we bounce forward from the scope of work, obviously we were here to take a look at the Kimberley Civic Center, the Marysville Arena, and the Kimberley Curling Club. I don't think that there's any surprises that those are wonderful facilities. They're busy facilities in your community, but they're also aged facilities. We had a look at how this aligns with your strategic priorities. We spent some time looking at your OCP, your corporate strategic plan, your recreational master plan, and then a number of items that we tried to align in any of our decision making. And so obviously this was a strategic piece, but certainly driven by the recreational master plan. I want to talk a little bit about our research. So we spent some time taking a look at your community. I think you probably know your community better than we ever could, but you are seeing consistent and strong growth. You have a large geographic footprint that you manage. Your household size and income is quite average compared to most of your competitors or your partner communities. From a facility standpoint, we took a look at how you compare or where you compare with other communities of similar size. Overall, you have more indoor ice than most of your comparable communities. Your facilities are slightly older, but not significantly older. Slightly smaller in terms of number of seats. Your pricing is on the higher end of adult and youth pricing, but you're within the range of where most other communities are. From a curling facility standpoint, you currently offer one curling facility for every 4,000 people, which is very comparable to other communities. The age of your facility is very comparable and the condition of your facility is very comparable to other communities. May bounce forward to the current state slide if we could. I won't spend a lot of time on these recommendations because we did in our last overview, but we did spend some time looking through the historical information about the engineering reports of your buildings. We also partnered with Faulkner Brown out of Vancouver, who are our partners on the design side. They spent some time, the green slide that says condition assessment review. Spent some time looking at the Civic Center, spent some time looking at the curling facility and curling club in the Marysville Arena. I would encourage you to spend some time. I don't think there should be anything that's a surprise in any of those facilities. Overall, there is roof and envelope opportunities. There's structural opportunities within the facility. And we broke it down into building structure and envelope, mechanical, and accessibility. Should recognize that most of your facilities from an accessibility standpoint, just given the age of them, have opportunity for improvement. But would also highlight some of the safety items that were discussed within those priorities. As you look to put investment into those facilities or consider investment in the future, obviously safety should be top of mind. We want to talk a little bit about ice utilization because this was probably the piece that provided some of the most new insight that we haven't shared with you. And so if we go to the ice rate comparison slide, what we tried to do on this slide is we tried to look at how you compare from a pricing standpoint on ice. And so if you look at the one that has the blue circle around it, that's the average price of youth ice in comparable communities to your market. And if you look at the orange circle, that's how Marysville Arena and the Kimberley Civic Center compare. Once again, I do want to recognize that it was ILO that found all this information, and she was fantastic. It's not easy to pull together all the time. Overall, you're competitive, but you're certainly on the high end of what you charge for ice. This includes primetime ice as well as non-prime. Just for this discussion, primetime ice is basically when people can use your ice because most kids are out of school, most families aren't working. Non-prime would be the less desirable ice. If we look at the ice comparison from an adult standpoint, I think the message is the same. You're near the top end of a pricing standpoint. From a competitive standpoint, what we're trying to showcase in this is it probably are not in a position to see significant price changes or price escalation beyond what would be market inflation. You're priced competitively today. You compete within the market and you provide good value for money. The next slide that we want to talk about a little bit is utilization. And part of why we want to highlight this is because we talked about primetime utilization and we've discussed non-primetime utilization. Now, there are some market indicators for most communities of where prime time should be and non-prime time should be. In most communities, your prime time ice should essentially be fully utilized. Target number would be 90% is where you would try to achieve. And that is traditionally your 4 o'clock until 10 o'clock and your weekend ice time. By bylaw, one of the pieces that I did want to note within this comparison is right now your bylaw, unless it's changed and I'm not aware, your bylaw does not consider weekend ice prime time. From our position, we believe that's the best industry standard. Obviously, weekend ice should be well used. And so in all of our comparisons, we considered prime time ice to be Saturday and Sunday ice as well. So essentially, when kids are out of school in the evenings, Monday to Friday, and then prime time would be the weekends. What I want to highlight on this slide is essentially your trend from a utilization standpoint. And so if you look at this graph highlights the total amount of ice that was used in 2018 and 2019. So there's about 2,600 hours of ice booked. If we look at where we were in 24, 25, we're sitting at about 2,400 hours of ice that were booked. And this would be ice of all forms. Essentially, we haven't fully recovered in our ice user groups from pre-COVID. And I will say that this is probably unique to what Sport Canada has seen across the nation. Doesn't mean that there is not reasons for that, but I would suggest in most clubs and most ice user groups, you would see that number have recovered and seen some growth. The other element that's unique about this is you have extraordinarily strong community growth. And so as your population is growing, we're not necessarily seeing that reflected in your ice user groups right now. So the best way to say it is your ice utilization is essentially flat. It's not going down, it's not going up. Flat's probably a fair term. If we move forward to the next slide, and I think this is a really important slide, and I don't know that there's any way to make it less complicated, so I'll try to speak to some of it. What we did is we looked at your average utilization by user group across every year of the past number of years. We'd heard some feedback in our community engagement and public engagement that suggested that we were finding out-of-market teams using a lot of the ice that was available in Kimberley. What I would suggest based on the research that we did is that's not the case when you look at the data. You're very much servicing your community. You're meeting the needs of local residents, you're meeting the needs of the taxpayers. You'll see some blips where I would suggest, if I was saying, let's highlight where out-of-market teams are showing up. Under the private bookings in 18 and 19 and 19 and 20, there was a bump of 7%. The reason for that was there was a couple unique tournaments that were hosted in your community, and it had a material impact on those utilization categories. And then in 23-24, Cranbrook Minor Hockey used a significantly more amount of ice than they have traditionally. And I believe that's because their ice plant was down and they were doing repairs. And so to the feedback of, hey, we're providing a lot of ice to those that don't live here, we didn't see anything in the data that would suggest that would be the case. In fact, we think you're servicing your community. What I will say is your number one user of ice is Kimberley Minor Hockey. Your number two is Kimberley Skating Club. And I want to draw your attention to public skating. Not that public skating at 14% of your ice is a bad thing. In fact, it means that you're quite accessible to the public. But what I will say is you have a remarkable amount of public skating that shows up in primetime ice, which is somewhat untraditional because those are traditionally the hours of ice that are easy to sell and valuable. The reason that I draw a highlight to this is because your leadership team, rightfully so, when there is availability in the schedule, will fill with public skating and public shinny. But you don't want to be using primetime ice for essentially not revenue generated ice bookings. So the next slide, we talk about utilization and we break down the facilities by month. And I think this is really important because we try to take a look at the Civic Center and we try to take a look at the Marysville Arena, and then we take a look at both of them together. And so if I was to take a look at your current utilization of the Civic Center, and on the chart down below, in January, you use 80% of your primetime ice. And I'm going to focus on primetime ice because it really is the driver. In most months, you can see that there's a fairly significant amount of primetime ice that's available. And that's essentially a sunk cost because your arena is operating and the ice is sitting without a rental on it. If you look at the comparison between pre-COVID and 24-25, best way to describe that once again is your utilization is flat. There's some peaks and valleys in there, but overall, it's relatively flat. But it does create a scenario where you're using about 56-60% of your overall ice at the Civic Center. Next slide is we do the same thing with the Marysville Arena. What's interesting about the Marysville Arena is you can see some peaks and some pretty significant peaks and valleys. Obviously, pre-COVID, you have a month in November where you're at 96% utilization, but post-COVID, we seem to be sitting right around that 50% utilization number. Once again, if I was to say, how's the Marysville Arena performing pre-COVID to today? It's relatively flat. The reason that these charts are really important, I think, as you make decisions around your ice strategies are when you talk about your cost recovery, and we'll talk about the financials in a minute. Cost recovery is very seldom do you find arenas that are profitable. Sometimes in bigger markets, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, you'll find profitability in arenas. And it's driven by two things. Well, really three. The price that they charge for ice. And so an hour of ice in a Calgary market or Vancouver market is $300 to $500 an hour for primetime ice. You're sitting at $195. Utilization, how much of your primetime and non-primetime ice is used, and then how operationally efficient are you? And so when we look at how you're positioning, your price is at the higher end of the market, but I would say competitive. I don't think it's overly high priced. I think it's where everybody else is. Your utilization is an opportunity for you to not only have more people engaged in recreation, to find better use of your arenas, but also find a better financial performance number. If we bump forward to the next slide, and I think this is probably the one that tells the ice utilization slide. What we did on this slide is we tried to take a look at how your arenas would perform if you only had one. And so one of the questions that we were asked through this process is, do we need to have two arenas? And the truth of the matter is you are a perfect 1.5 arena town, city, right? The truth of the matter is you're growing at a pace that is fairly quick. Both of your arenas have opportunity to receive growth, but you're too big to simply have one, and you're likely today too small to have two. And so when you look at the utilization chart that's included in this PowerPoint, there are only 2 months where you would have greater utilization than you have the ability to receive if you only had one arena. That would be January and February. Now, when you think about the growth that you're seeing as a community and part of the opportunity to receive that growth in ice sport, it's reasonable to suggest that you should see growth in your participation of minor hockey and minor skating. But when you see utilization numbers that are 65 or 60 or 87, there is substantial opportunity for you to receive more bookings. So the truth of the matter is, could you operate with one arena? You could. However, you'd struggle to meet the needs of your residents in January and February. So from our perspective and how we've tried to position this is, we think this is about an opportunity to work together to fill your arenas versus the time to say this is the time to step away from the arena. From an ice utilization standpoint, our perspective is you're priced competitively. Your utilization is below what market standards should be. And when we talk to the financial standpoint, I actually suggest that I think you're very efficient at how you run your arenas. Nick and I had the chance to take a look at a few other communities on the cost side. You run fairly lean, I would say very lean, and I think that actually helps you significantly on your cost recovery. I won't spend a lot of time through the chair and to the table on the community engagement. Maybe perhaps what I'll do is I'll just highlight some of the themes that we heard from the community. What I will say is we had open houses. We did an online survey thanks to the team here. And we hit essentially our 95% accuracy ratio that we were targeting. Feedback from the community suggested that we want to invest in our aging infrastructure. We want to improve our scheduling, and we want to find better utilization. We want to make sure that our experience is better. We want to make sure that we're clear on how we operate our facilities. In addition to the feedback that we heard from the community, overall, the public participation was quite clear from the general public as well. There is a strong sense of attachment and community around ice facilities. We recognize that our infrastructure is aging, and this brings with it operational challenges and the need to invest. There is a desire for spaces that are more inclusive and more accessible to ensure that every member of the community can participate, and more sustainable. There is a recognition that the tax burden of spending money on new buildings is something that is not easy to receive within our community, and not something that the community necessarily wanted to endure. However, there was also a sense that our two arenas and our curling facility are important to us within the community. If I bump forward to the facility performance elements, and I'll draw your attention to the cost recovery. So what I will say is, if you look at the cost recovery of the Civic Center and the Marysville Arena over the course of the last number of years, you have seen significant improvement in cost recovery. And essentially, this is what does it cost to operate the building? How much revenue do we make? And what's the gap between what we're earning, what it's costing to operate? That's how we get to our cost recovery number. What I will say is this number has opportunity because of the amount of ice that's not being used right now that you could rent. And so with every hour of ice that you rent, that cost recovery number is going to get better. And frankly, it should get better. But overall, our cost recovery sits kind of at that 50 to 55 range between the two facilities. We've provided a number of recommended options. What we've tried to do is we've tried to, within the document, around where you could go. And so we looked at this with three options around what do you do if you want to look at replacing arenas. We provided one, which was renovate your existing facilities to get them to a market standard. Number two was upgrade and replace your facilities, a blend of building new and modernizing what you have. And then option three was what would happen if we built everything new. Essentially, we looked at two sites, the Marysville Arena site and the Civic Center Arena site. Both of them have land requirements that would impact existing recreational and park spaces if you were to build over them. But we did provide some options within the document of how you could build either in addition or through renovation or simply building new. Within those options, we also provided a Class D estimate through a third-party cost consultant. which broke down the cost of the three options, which essentially ranged at if we're going to renovate our existing options to market standard, it would be a $65 million investment. And if you're going to build everything new in the form of a multiplex, it would be a $200 million investment. We'd shared this previously with you as leaders, but we also felt that this was unrealistic at this time until you get some better information around how your arenas are operating. Within the scope, I think we were certainly surprised by the valuations that came forward and the significance of them. The great thing with it is you have two arenas that are operating and they have opportunity within them and they're safe. One of the pieces that we wanted to speak to was the repair and maintenance component. If you look at current asset benchmarking from a replacement standpoint and a maintenance standpoint, recommendation is 1 to 3%. I have no doubt that you as council see this consistently across all of your amenities. The idea of deferred maintenance in municipal operations is nothing new, and I don't think it will ever change. There's just simply never enough money to do all the things that you would like to do. However, when you look at your existing assets and you consider their replacement value, the investment that you make in maintaining them is only going to become more burdensome as they get older. And so part of what we wanted to highlight is there are standards by which you should invest. Right now, you invest on key projects as they're in need. But as your buildings age, if you don't want to replace them, they will come with more costs, just simply by the virtue of the fact that they're older facilities. If we can bounce forward to the economic and tourism impact, one of the pieces that we did want to highlight within this document for you was there is an opportunity around tourism, recognizing that you are a wonderful tourism destination to begin with, and there is some shoulder season opportunity. We spent some time looking at the economic impact of hosting a single 8-team hockey tournament within your community. And using the STEAM, which is the Sport Tourism Economic Assessment Model, essentially the value of 8 hockey teams coming to play here is about $200,000. It's about $240,000 for the province, and it's about $300,000 of economic win for the nation. There is an opportunity around hosting tournaments because you have ice available and you have a very strong skating program as well as minor hockey program. The next slide, we talked about risks. When we talked to the team about risks, I think what floated to the top was the availability for funding, whether that's federal, provincial, or municipal. The willingness to have support from the community for a major investment around recreation. And then lastly, what happens if we have a major component of infrastructure failure, whether that's mechanical or structural? When you have old buildings, that's simply a risk. And so we did rate those risks. We worked with the team on developing some mitigation strategies. What I'd like to do, if we could, is I'd like to draw your attention to the recommendations. There's a series of them. I don't intend to go through all of them because I think I've probably used more than my time. But we tried to build the recommendations along a couple categories. Number one is short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Our recommendation to you is that you focus on the short-term recommendations that are shown in the plan. Once you get better information and you improve the efficiency and how you operate, we think there's an opportunity to make some decisions around buildings, but we don't recommend that you do that today. We've evaluated each of those recommendations based on the amount of effort. In most cases, that's staff or third-party investment that you're going to need, and the financial investment. Each has been scored based on the index that is included in the document. What we would recommend to you as council is that you take some time to finalize your decision. You are in a unique place where you're a great 1.5 arena community, but unfortunately, you either have to have one or you have to have two. But our recommendation to you would be that you challenge yourselves to find better ways to increase your utilization, and that you challenge the community to do the same. Our recommendation to you would be that you invest in life safety issues, particularly life safety issues at the Civic Center, and anything that could put the public, patrons, or players in harm's way. But that you take between now and 2030 to work with your major stakeholders, to challenge them to prove that we need 2 arenas and to challenge yourselves from a booking standpoint to be more seamless and leverage technology so that ice doesn't go wasted. There's a number of recommendations in here. We felt that the best approach that we could offer to you at this time is use your ice. There is nothing worse as Canadians than having an hour of ice sitting there without skates on it. Right now, you have more hours than you should, and it's costing you money. Is it a lot of money? Probably not. But it is a lot of opportunity for community to recreate and for young people, or frankly, not young people, to participate. So our recommendation is target the short-term opportunities that we've highlighted. I think they should improve with your financial performance and they should improve your utilization. But sit down with your stakeholders and sit down with your staff and challenge them to show better performance. And I would encourage you as council to ask for that report on an annual basis. Because at some point, if you don't see growth in your ice sports, there's probably better uses for indoor buildings than you're using them for today. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome, Tim. Thank you. There was a lot to unpack, a lot of data, which is always important to have the data and get it parsed correctly. And I agree, we're going to have to take a little bit of time to take a look at certain aspects of this, but I'm sure we're going to have some questions here specific. So we'll start with Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I've got quite a few comments when we get to the approving the report, but while you're here, Tim, I've got a couple for you as well. I really like the fact that this is a comment. I really like the fact that you pointed out the non-market opportunities there. I look at a place like Canal Flats, who fills their rink essentially with Alberta tournaments and even Alberta League game play. And I think you're absolutely spot on. I don't see any reason why, the minor hockey, figure skating, dynamiters all get their schedules done very early. And you're going to see those soft areas. You're going to see those gaps where those gaps can be filled. And what's especially nice about those is those are folks from out of town who are going to have to stay. They're going to have to eat, they're going to have to go out. They're going to shop, all these wonderful things like you pointed out in the tourism section of it. So thank you for pointing that out. The two things that I have, one I think is fairly straightforward, and the other one is a little bit funky. The renovations that we have, or that you've proposed to the Civic Center, obviously a new pad, new boards, things like that can be done incrementally, and I think a key there is the portability. But from a totality state with the Civic Center, can a lot of those renovations done incrementally over time?
Yeah.
Or yeah. And then I'll ask you just one more thing. Is there opportunity? I know in new builds it would be obvious because I've seen it in Western Financial Place, but is there also opportunity to add commercial space, office space inside the arena itself to generate more revenue?
Yeah, through the chair, maybe I can tackle the questions, the comments, and let me know if I miss anything. First of all, I think your comment on bringing new market here is something that you should focus on. It does 3 things. A, it drives economic impact. To your point, there are new dollars coming to your community to eat sandwiches and spend money on gasoline. It also creates displacement. So when you host a tournament, whatever was on that weekend, which isn't always a good thing, has to find days during the week to practice, which means your utilization improves. And then the last thing that it does is normally whoever the host team is makes a little bit of money, so it lowers the fees for those parents and for that club. And so, tournament hosting is just, to be honest, it's a win-win-win if you can bring it to your community, recognizing it's unique here because of your resort space and your hotel space. But in those shoulder seasons, if you can figure it out, as a guy with a U13-year-old son in hockey, this is about the top of the list of places I'd like to go because I end up in a lot of communities that I hope not to go back to on a weekend, just because it's a hockey tournament and you're a wonderful destination. To your question on your ability to sequence things, I'm going to bring up the boards and the glass and the slab piece. I do think, because it's worthy to share, one of the pieces of feedback that we had from the public often, and I would say from your key user groups, where we've been talking about that replacement for a long time and not done it. Our view and our recommendation, hopefully it was clear, was invest in the Civic Center because the replacement cost of that building is probably more than would be reasonable for the community to bear, unless you had a huge degree of partnership from other levels of government. But there are some elements such as boards and glass and slab, and I know that the compressors are being replaced, but I think some of those things are investment that the community's been waiting on for quite some time. The rest of it, I think you can do in sequence, and I think you should. And so whatever your priorities are, and our recommendation is always start with the safety components of it. But I think there are some elements in there as well that will show to the community that we're going to invest in this asset and make sure that it's part of our community for a long time. The other piece to the Civic Center is there is very much an emotional attachment to that arena. It's a beautiful rink. You know, it is, you don't build them like that, and we're fortunate to build a lot of new arenas. None of them feel like that arena does. It is a place that is about your community, and I think that matters as well. To your component of community, of commercialization, it actually links to the utilization. So if you're a developer and you're going to put an anchor tenant in a grocery store or a movie theater, the reality of it is hockey rinks generally drive hundreds of thousands of visitors in a year. They're really good anchor tenants for development. And so whether it's in the arena or in the adjacent lands, the average hockey rink, if programmed to 90% primetime utilization, is going to drive over 100,000 visits a year. Those aren't unique, but the truth of the matter is they are people that are going to spend, and their mums and dads are trying to find out how to feed their kids before they go home. So I would say it's two things: get your utilization up, make it really attractive, and then the commercialization makes sense. The other piece to it is clustering your amenities. And you have some pieces that right now where the Civic Center and the Aquatic Center are so close. The idea of clustering your recreational amenities do create commercial opportunities. And that's relevant from the NHL right down to many smaller communities.
Further? You go. Yep. So to kind of piggyback on that, arguably the boards and the glass are a safety issue. Anybody who's been in there and watched the glass fall out when there's a hard hit on the boards, which has happened more than one time, certainly in the times that I've been in the arena. And I think if we take a look at just the safety factor alone on those, it's pretty significant.
Agree.
I had a question about utilization rates, and I had put down here, or not utilization, cost recovery. If we maximized utilization, what is the maximum amount of cost recovery that we could expect? Now, I see in your recommendations in here, recommendation number 4, I think it is, or one of these in here, you're suggesting 70%. The numbers that we have to date on 24 or 2,500 that have flatlined, that would be a little ambitious, I think.
Yeah, I think it comes back to how do you drive that primetime number. So if you can get your utilization up, I think your cost recovery will follow. I also want to be really clear on some of the opportunities that you have in non-primetime ice, because I think they're material and I think it's an opportunity for you. So we've targeted 70% because we think that's industry standard. Based on your pricing, and I think Nick and I had the chance to do a little bit of math on it, I wouldn't take 70% off the table. I would say that's the number that we're chasing. You may not get there. But
you should.
It is the goal.
Yeah.
There is an opportunity around daytime ice and non-primetime ice. And so one of the things that we're seeing in Canada is we're seeing Hockey Canada go through a bit of a transformation with a number of private leagues that are showing up. You happen to have one here that seems to be very strong as well. The ability to put academy programs into your daytime ice is essentially, it's just gravy, because that ice is sitting there all the time. And so whatever you can do with daytime ice that is not highly attractive, that generates revenue, is a significant win. And I would say where we see our best performing arenas that would achieve profit from operations are when they, fill their prime time, hit 90% prime time, and then do whatever you can to use that daytime ice to generate revenue. So our recommendation is hit 90% prime time ice should be the goal, hit 70% cost recovery.
Okay, awesome. The other thing that wasn't mentioned, or at least I didn't see, was other events, non-ice related events. I had a couple of years ago, one of the car dealerships in town come and ask whether or not we would be open as a municipality to looking at whether it's summer or winter, at having a consolidated automobile sale where you could get multiple dealers together with a number of cars, and the arena seemed to be a pretty good opportunity for something like that. It's additional revenue and it's brand new revenue.
I think the opportunity you have around special events, whether that's using your slabs as trade show space or bringing in live entertainment or festivals, is significant.
Yeah. Now, we'd have to have new boards and glass because we can't take the ones we have out, but it all kind of fits together.
I'd agree.
Okay, Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
I just had a question around the utilization numbers. I'm just looking at the numbers for Marysville in November and December. And I was curious whether whether you'd considered it all like a later start for the Marysville Arena as a potential for some cost savings, because we clearly have the capacity in prime time in those months to cover it with the Civic.
Through the chair, I think it's a great question. One of the challenges that you have with the Marysville Arena is you have a very small ice plant, and it's somewhat conditional upon your temperatures outside to be able to build ice. And so I agree with your comment that could we defer the timing of putting ice into the Marysville Arena? I believe that's true. The challenge that you have is it takes a long time for you to build ice. And so if you had a more modern ice plant, you could probably make ice in 2 to 3 days. And right now, and I've looked at Jim or Nick to maybe comment, depending on the weather outside and the humidity and the temperature, it can take you 7, 10, 14 days to get to the ice depths that you would like. So yes, 100%. I think you could find efficiency by the timing of when you put ice in. I think part of the challenge that you have is your ice plant doesn't give you a lot of flexibility at this point, but it could.
Further, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if we're deferring by a month or two, we'd also be seeing colder temperatures, which would increase the efficiency of the ice plant. So
I agree.
I hear you, and it's also, something that we might at least be looked at. I don't know how that impacts user groups and the details of that, and I wouldn't want to create major issues for anyone. But if we do have, according to this, the capacity within the Civic, it might be something to consider.
Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Go ahead.
This is a really offbeat question, and I think about this because I think of how Trail used to have bench seating and now they have single seats. What are they doing with the Saddle Dome seats? Do you know?
I believe they're selling them and disposing of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay.
they're wonderful partners of ours, if you like.
Yeah. Well, and I figured you might have that answer. So. Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor down the back.
Yeah, I appreciate the report and all the time taken and the information brought forward. One thing that I didn't really see or hear us talk about is we're all always about creating revenue, and I see a real simple way to maybe possibly create a lot of revenue for zero cost, and that's the building sponsorship, like Western Financial Place. This guy should be able to rattle off a bunch of them, but I just noticed this as I walked in to take my children swimming a few days ago, and I was like, I wonder what your thoughts are on that, or anybody's thoughts.
So you
on
talked
that,
about
actually.
naming rights for the facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair.
For least amount of time, generate some zero labor, zero input on our part, other than offering a place for them to hang their shingle.
Yeah.
And show their support of community.
Thanks for that, Councillor down the back. Go ahead, Tim.
Just a comment, recognizing that it's part of a greater strategic discussion that most communities should have. It is the single best performing margin line that you will have in an arena. And it can be material, particularly when you have corporate partners that want to invest in high visible areas. So I had we finalized a naming rights agreement for an arena on my flight out here worth $500,000 a year. And so to your point, I think it's material. I think it's an opportunity, but it is part of a strategic discussion that you need to have because it changes the way that you acknowledge your buildings and engage with them. But if you want to see quick wins, sponsorship, advertising, and partnership is probably your fastest moving bucket.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a kind of smaller question because I haven't seen it anywhere. It came to my mind recently when I saw this older person looking around for a seat on the mezzanine, and I said, well, why don't you go to sit down there? I said, I can't get down the stairs. There's no banisters. So I was interested to know whether or not that's a standard in arenas these days. So there's a handrails of some sort.
Through the chair, it is. It's not a standard in arenas of your era. And so what I will say is there are grant programs and there's funding opportunities to make sure you can put those in. We've seen them in a number of facilities. All three of your ICE facilities have pretty significant challenges with mobility or folks that have mobility impairments. You can see it in the report. But so to your answer, yes, it is a standard. It's not a standard in buildings of your era. Although there are funding programs that are available to be install railings and make sure that there's access for everybody in your buildings.
As in like rare?
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
Just a quick comment, and thank you so much for this excellent report. And, just that change is needed and we can't afford to continue the status quo, and nor should we, considering the wide range of recreational interests and broader societal needs, and the public engagement piece that really highlighted that desire for multi-purpose and flexible spaces as well. So I appreciated your comments in here around the changing demographics and expectations. And I also just wanted to highlight I don't see any reference to kind of a value proposition around, and this would be further down the road, but just recreation centers, those public spaces and emergency type facilities as we experience more extreme weather events going forward, that this would bring, this is a good value proposition for our community as well. So just wanted to bring that forward.
Through the chair, maybe just two comments on that. And I believe, Councillor, you highlighted something that is important to note. We did receive considerable feedback around, we want to have a greater discussion around recreation other than just ice. And because of the scope of this project, we had our guardrails around ice. What I would say is there is a desire to have a broader discussion, and probably rightfully so, as the demographics of every community is changing in Canada, and we see growth in so many spaces. To your comment about emergency preparedness and the use of these buildings, we have a number of new facilities and renovations where we're working with provincial and federal government levels on how do we make sure that our buildings can act as evacuation centers. Truth of the matter is it does take some work, harder to do in an older facility, but truth is when you do need large spaces, arenas, community centers are very valuable, and there are some programs federally and provincially that have standards by which you build to. It will be more of a challenge in your facilities. But having received, as the operator once, 5,000 people from Fort McMurray fleeing a fire, they ended up in arenas for a long time. And so the truth is, being ready for those emergencies in large buildings is smart, in our opinion.
All right, further? A comment, no requirement to respond to this, Tim. You mentioned that the Marysville Ice Plant was old. It's 12 years old. Not 40 years old like the others, and that tells me that we perhaps grossly undersized that when it went in, which is a little bit disturbing. But
better language.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
You bet. Thanks for being here. This works a lot better than virtual does.
We're going to have a broader
Right now.
discussion. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I thought so. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
First item under new business is the final report And first of all, the first motion on the floor is that council receive the ICE facilities strategy report. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Fox seconds. Okay, there's a couple of other motions here, but let's have our discussion under the first. Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I got a pretty good list here. Kind of goes to how the first thing I want to discuss kind of what Councillor Cairns segued into at the end and what we were talking about at the end with multi-purpose facilities. And I guess it just goes to what this document is and what it could be or should be. I think this is just one piece of the puzzle that needs to be integrated into a broader facilities discussion. You know, whether we just renovate the civic center and then make a multi-purpose other use type of thing. You look at the other facilities that need replacing in Kimberley. We're talking about Fire Hall, City Hall, Library, among others. And I see a lot of opportunity there. Now, maybe it's long term, but I think there's opportunity there. And going beyond that, if there's movement, whether we're getting rid of the Marysville Arena to build something new or whatever, the one thing we're not talking about is the areas that these current facilities are on right now are pretty prime real estate. And if one of them were to be demolished and moved to somewhere else, there's a huge opportunity for non-market change gains that we could make, whether it's commercial, industrial, or residential space. So I think that needs to be brought into the conversation too. Not only if you're moving one thing to another, but what could we use that existing land that it's on for? Beyond that as well, I know we were pretty constrained here with potential locations for different facilities, no matter whatever that looks like. I think we need to be open as a council and as a city too to look at other potential options, whether it's private property that will come to market that maybe we purchase that's strategically in better location than just fitting it to where we could fit it right now. There's opportunities, I think, for us to maybe have some discussions with some big land holders like Teck, and I know that has taken place before. I guess where I'm going though is I just think we should not limit ourselves necessarily to just these locations that were chosen to this just because that space was there or available. I think we need to, because of the geography of our town and trying to optimize how our city works, functions, we really need to say, okay, put all this stuff aside and maybe what's the best place regardless of what's there right now. So I think that really needs to be considered. And my last point, and we talked about it at the end there with the Civic Center. Absolutely, the slab and the boards. I know we've talked about this with grants, and we've got it in the 2027 budget. I think we absolutely have to go through that. Not only from the fact that I think all users, especially hockey players, will love the fact that it's not an adventure to play in our arena, how the boards function right now, but for the safety reasons. And I think the other advantage, or the other thing that we can focus on there too, is the way that boards are structured now is they're portable. The chiller's portable, the boards are portable. So in case down the road we got some wonderful benefactor that wanted to give us $100 million for a new facility, well, we can still use some of these things that we've invested in. And then the last thing I would say about that's not necessarily in these current recommendations that I think is an easy win for us, that would just make the building, at least the Civic Center, just look less tired, is a paint job or some exterior cladding. It looks sad right now, and it breaks my heart because it is a very special place to me. And I know that could be a sunk cost, but I think it's something that we really need to think about because I have a lot of pride when I step into that building, and right now it just looks a little tired. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Councillor McBain. Who's next? Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
I love the whole pie in the sky concept of let's just go for it. Let's just get that whole big thing. Let's put it all together. We'll put a library at one end of it and put a fire hall at the other end of it and a couple of streets in between. And there she is. And we could use all that brown land that we're getting certified up in the tech land. It's an absolutely amazing concept. Only $280 million, none of which we have. So I think I love that whole idea. But we have to keep ourselves grounded and say, what is it we actually can do? And how can we incrementally get to a place where some of that is realized? I think let's not belabor the fact that we are working towards making this a healthier place, a safer place to go. That's a good step forward. And we've got all kinds of amazing opportunities in the future. Well, even if we have to look for an unknown grant that has to do with banisters, it's an improvement that could change the lives of a lot of other people in the community. So I think let's not lose sight of what Councillor McBain is sharing, because I think that's a real great desire. If you don't think about it, and if you don't, the opportunities don't come your way. Once you've created an idea that you think has value, you will be stunned at how many options show up in your brain. They come out of the left and the right because now you're open to the idea. So don't lose it, but let's not lose our grounding in what we have to do right now.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
So I really appreciated this report and the way it was laid out and the kind of gradual incremental approach to see what we can do. We know that change is needed and we need to look at what opportunities we have. And we also have a great body of work around public engagement on this piece. And then just really, for me, Jim's comment really captures it on page 3 of the report of the magnitude of this decision. Decisions related to this financially need to be set in context of the whole bigger picture. And so it, feels imperative to me that we have that bigger picture of what our critical needs are at this point before diving into any of the details around these pieces. So I like the recommendations, the way that these are set out, things that we can do in the meantime and work towards while we figure out our other needs and how we can make the most of the opportunities that we have in front of us. And then so that's where I sit at this point.
Thanks for that, Councillor Cairns. Nick, a couple of questions, if I may. How much have we invested in the ICE, the 3 buildings in the last, 10 years, 5 years, kind of whatever period of time? Would you happen to have that?
I do, yeah. Thanks for preemptively prompting the questions on that. So I did a bit of research with the help of Zach. Frankly, it's not much in the last 5 years, and right now the capital plans don't have much in there looking ahead, and that's solely due to the fact that we knew this process was ongoing, so we weren't committing funds to these facilities without kind of knowing the bigger picture of the grand plan. So I mean, for example, the Civic Center, it's only had about $550,000 invested in the last 5 years. It's got the most forecasted investment, so about 4.6 over the next 5 years that it's in the current financial plan. A big chunk of that is the chiller and the slabs and boards that we've talked about. Councillor McBain, maybe just to reinforce your concerns on the paint job as well, we do have that on the books for this year to get done. So we're just working through procurement on that right now. Yeah. Marysville Arena, it's only seen about $160,000 invested in the last 5 years. Currently, it's only got about $60,000 planned. The curling club has seen about $76,000 invested in the last 5 years, and it's about 461,000 planned for the next few years.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that, Nick. I guess, so that 550K in the Civic Center, so that includes the lighting, the LED lights, that would include the insulation that went in a few years ago. I'm just trying to get a feel for, kind of the work that has been done and kind of what the magnitude of that is. Now, we got grants. We got grants for that. Yeah, and we put almost like 800,000 into the north wall.
Yeah, so this is actually, those figures don't include the north wall investment. So that was about 2017, the north wall went in. So this was only going back to about 2021.
Okay. So that would preclude the lights and,
Yeah.
some other things as well.
Mhm.
Okay. So there has been some really quality upgrades done on that building over time, which is awesome. Councilor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add one other comment, just as a reminder. We are currently committed to a large payout for our wastewater treatment plant that's going to last 25 or 30 years. Not unlike the swimming pool has lasted that long for us to pay it off. So once we start looking at the idea of doing a massive project like that, we really need to be aware of how much commitment we have out there versus how much we can afford to take on. Sorry,
Yeah,
the
you're
banker's
speaking about
speaking
complex.
up here. Sorry.
You're talking about a new complex?
Yeah, if we're going to go that way.
I think for the most part, whatever we do on the reno side, like bringing things up to par, for the most part, we're on our own. We have had in 2019, 2020, and 2022 grant applications for the board's glass and chiller, all denied over those 3 different applications. The chiller was turned down in 2024, just shortly ago, because the energy savings weren't enough for the grant pot that was available. And the one thing we did get in 2020 were grants to put in new furnaces and the ceiling in both Marysville Arena and the Civic Center. And if I remember correctly, we also got a $50,000 grant from CBT to redo the dressing rooms. This is a few years ago now, certainly not in the last 5. I think it was, probably 10 years ago or whatever that we got the money to do that. So there have been some, incremental investments, but they're not coming from grants. It was very discouraging. I know Pam worked hard on those 3 boards, glass, chiller grants that went in. And I think the official word coming back was oversubscribed, but everything is oversubscribed and they do triage. So oversubscribed and you don't get it basically means you were pretty low on the totem pole with respect to the priority for that particular project. So I think whatever happens with respect to how we're moving forward, we're going to have to fund this stuff on our own. That doesn't mean we don't do grant applications, but our probability of getting those things is really, really low at this point. Okay, further conversation on this? Go ahead, Councillor Dunavac.
I just want to comment that everybody who spoke tonight, it sounds like we're all very much on a similar page. And Mr. Mayor, you made a comment of us possibly coming up short again on the Marysville facility with it being too small. Moving forward, I'd love to see, Jason, you brought some, or Councillor McBain, you brought some valid input that hadn't really crossed my mind, but the fact that with this upgrade, if it's done properly, and we think about it right now, that we can essentially unbolt that stuff and take it to the new facility when it's ready for us. And the cost of building multiple facilities and having care for each facility and MOB and everything that's caught and power and just all of it, it really makes sense to look at a super facility where everything is there. We're developing land that hasn't been used, bringing more of the community together that wouldn't necessarily meet each other into a common place that's more usable, ticks off accessibility, densification, giving some land back to the community, whether it's turned into parks or affordable housing. And in the end, we finally don't come up short on a project.
Thanks for the comments, Councillor Dunavac. Okay, last call. I'll call the question. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up is a resolution to direct staff towards implementation of the 2026 recommendations as outlined in the both the staff report and the facilities report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? The motion is carried. And finally, the council directs staff to develop an implementation plan for the remaining recommendations to be considered for inclusion in the 2027 to 2031 5-year financial plan. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Excellent. Good discussion all around, council. Next up, we have the wastewater treatment plant project update report. Motion on the floor is receipt. Councillor McGuire moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm pleasantly happy to be here and providing an update on the treatment plant. The last update was in December, and lots of good things have happened since now and then. Some of you may have already seen the press releases and stuff like that, but the two major milestones that were achieved here recently were receiving the amending agreement from the province on the grant to accept the changes on the process design, the site location, and schedule. So those are the three big ones that were out there, and we have that signed amending agreement. And then the second major milestone is that we have received our municipal waste regulation registration from the province, which permits us to proceed with construction and recognizes that the current design meets the requirements of the regulation. Of course, there's lots of requirements tied to that for ongoing reporting and some conditions that we need to work through, but those are the big major milestones to keep this project moving forward. And we are fast approaching mobilization. So as mentioned in here, we will be on site March 17th. The crews will be mobilizing site trailers and prepping everything to get ready to essentially start with our civil works in early April of this year. As we work towards mobilization, we are still working on the detailed design phase. We are nearing the goal of getting our IFC drawings completed in early April. So just kind of working through the final details on that. And we have submitted our building permit along with that, and we are working with Andy and his team there to work through the details on that, and expecting a formal building permit here in the next few weeks. And all that to keep us moving towards that mobilization date that I mentioned there. In terms of public communications, we issued that press release earlier, as I mentioned, and then we are also planning a groundbreaking ceremony to officially kick off the construction here of this big project on April 8th, which will be held at the facility itself. In terms of budget, we are still tracking on budget, and we are, as I mentioned before, we are working to finalize our final target costs, and costs are still trending down. So we are recognizing some savings as we kind of work through the final design details and scheduling and everything. So once we work towards locking in that final target cost, we'll recognize those savings, and then at that point we'll be ready to make some decisions on reinvesting some of those savings back into putting back in some items that were taken away during the validation phase to keep us within budget. or recognize those as savings as we progress here. So currently, we're actually tracking about, it's ebbing and flowing, but it's around that $2 million mark in savings that we're seeing right now.
It's awesome, Nick.
Mhm. I think that's the Coles Notes summary there, but happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Council? So, so on the MWR, at the end of the day, all the consternation with the ministry on timing around that, it's about 6 months, which I think for an MWR, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty quick.
I think we
you
may
know,
have set
thanks-
some new records. Yes.
Thanks to the ministry and our partners for marshaling that through. That was really quick. The process, location, and schedule extensions. Was there any pushback or any difficulty with that, or was it accepted fairly readily?
No pushback per se. They just wanted to confirm that our First Nation partners were on board with the proposed changes, and that there any concerns that they had were addressed. So we were able to work through that, and yeah, I think it went smoothly. So
Yeah, excellent. Where these reports are best possible news, Nick. Nicely done to the project team for the work so far.
thank you very much.
Anything further, council? All right, call the question. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Motion's carried. All right, next up, we have the wastewater treatment plant borrowing and parcel tax implementation timing. Motion on the floor is receipt of the staff report from the Chief Financial Officer. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns, thank you. And Councillor Roberts seconds. Krista.
Great. Thank you, Mayor McCormick. Yes, with the updated information provided by the Senior Manager of Operations regarding the project and the mobilization this month, it was necessary to do an updated analysis of the expenditure cash flows for the project and the associated debt requirements. And as you may recall, the project budget identifies $23.2 million to come from debt. And we've already taken several steps so far to secure the debt, including ministry approval, elector approval, adoption of the loan authorization bylaw, and adoption of the temporary borrowing bylaw. The current 5-year financial plan, this one that we're currently in, had assumed that the temporary short-term debt would be utilized throughout 2026 and 2027 until the full debenture borrowing would be issued in the fall of 2027. And the updated analysis indicates that this timing is still appropriate with the updated information provided in Nick's staff report. We will, however, continue to monitor the cash flows and may revisit the timing if the economic environment indicates that interest rates may rise. So with the debenture borrowing anticipated to be issued in the fall of 2027, the payments toward debt repayment will begin in 2028. And it was previously determined by council that the debt repayment would be funded through the implementation of a parcel tax bylaw. So an updated estimate of that parcel tax levy based on current rates as of last week, it is estimated to be approximately $337, which of course would begin in 2028. This is a
30-year term?
30-year term, yes. And of course, this is an estimate at this stage. You know, the variables include the timing of the debt issuance and the interest rates at that time. If new information comes available, we will bring another report to council to provide updated estimates. So the staff report includes 2 resolutions, one to update the capital budget for the project to reflect the updated cash flow expenditure, which is differed slightly from what was presented at the December 1st meeting, where the capital non-capital budget was approved. So that first resolution is to amend that budget for over the next 5 years, and as well as amending the debt servicing costs within the sewer fund, the operating budget for the sewer fund to recognize the updated interest and principal costs over the next 5 years.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Krista. Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you. Krista, may seem like an unusual question, but Are we the last money in? The city's money?
It's, no, it's because it's the grant funded, we submit claims, so it's the 73% portion that the federal and provincial funding will pay as we claim. So
As we claim.
right, so they'll fund the 73% of costs as we're going, and then the remainder will be
Of our responsibility. Okay,
Exactly.
okay. So we get our money as we claim. Are we using any of our own money to pay before the grants come our way?
we will, so the province prepaid approximately 23 million of their portion.
Okay,
So we have that held
okay,
and earning interest at the moment. So the provincial portion and then the federal portion comes as we claim it. And we will have to pay upfront until that money comes in. So that's the purpose of the temporary borrowing bylaws to.
okay, okay. All right, that's right. Thank you.
Questions? Call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next resolution is the council directs staff to amend the 5-year capital budget as presented to reflect the revised project budget distribution. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, the council directs staff to incorporate the amended principal and interest budget allocations estimated on the borrowing as outlined in the report. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you, Krista. Okay, next up, the motion on the floor is that council receive the long-term grant recipients annual summary report as presented in the agenda. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor Fox seconds. Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Forgive my voice. This is the purpose of this report is to present a summary of the 6 long-term grant recipients' annual reports that they've provided back in February as required under the long-term grants policy. I think the report really expresses the good work that these 6 organizations are doing within the community, and I do hope the community takes some time to read it. We've also attached those reports. I have financial and other information available if council would like access to that. But just to highlight those 6 organizations that currently receive long-term grants, they are the Kimberley Arts Council, Center 64, Kimberley District Heritage Society, the Museum, Kimberley Helping Hands Food Bank, the Kimberley Nature Park Society, Kimberley Trail Society, and the Food Recovery Depot. The report outlines what these organizations did through their 2025 year, particularly with regards to how they utilize city funding. And it talks about projects and activities that they have planned for 2026.
Yeah, it was an excellent report. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Questions or comments, council? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks very much, Pam. Okay, next up, we have the Kimberley Heritage Panel Project. The motion on the floor is the council approve the installation of up to 7 interpretive heritage panels, pardon me, heritage panels as part of the interpretive heritage panel project in the locations identified in the report. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Karen seconds. We've talked about this before. I'm not sure if council has any other questions or comments. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks for that one, Pam. All right, we have a couple of items of correspondence this evening. 3 items. Could I have a mover to receive?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a second motion related to undertaking of the installation at the bottom of the page.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, thank you, Maurice. And further? The motion is that council approve the city undertaking to install 3 of the panels, estimated in-kind labor between $600 and $1,000. Mover, please. Let's get it on the floor first. Are you moving? Councillor Dunavac moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Go ahead, Councillor Dunavac.
Do we have a picture of the scope of to what these are actually gonna look like? So we're not like gonna end up looking like Slab City or something like that? Just, it'd be neat to see what the perspective is gonna be and how big they are and what the displays are gonna be. Are they gonna be movable? Are they gonna be is it gonna? Yeah, just,
They will, the panels right now are 36 by 36 inches. Both members or several members of the committee came in January and they actually had a template of what they look like. That report is attached to this report. If you'd like to kind of see what the general layout of the panels are going to be. But if you
It's page 296.
if you recall the Addie Unterberger display that's outside the Yodeling Woodcarver there, I'm not sure if you've seen that,
yeah.
Councilor Dunavac. Okay, so it'll be quite like that.
Okay.
The ones that are in the Platzel, we're aiming to put them in the planters. We want to keep them out of fire lanes and snow removal and that type of thing.
Awesome.
So, and we'll do the work in conjunction with annual Platzel planter work that we're going to do this year. So, yeah, they'll look quite similar to that Addie Unterberger.
Sounds great. Sounds like there's been a lot of thought put into it. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Dunavac. Further? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, on to correspondence. Move receipt. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor McGuire seconds. Council, we have a couple of items here, suggested items for action. The first one is from Kofi. And the motion on the floor, though, is that council simply receive the letter from Kofi. I'm not sure if there's anything further council wishes to go ahead.
I'll move that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Councillor McGuire moved, Councillor McBain second. All those in favor? That motion is carried. The next item is the letter from Military Ames dated March the 2nd, requesting to name an unnamed road Veterans Way. That would be the alleyway in behind the monuments. The motion on the floor is that council receive the letter from Military Ames and further that council refer the letter to staff for a report for council's consideration at an upcoming meeting. Councillor McBain moves. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Karen seconds. Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, just a question for Jim. Where I know we've discussed terms of reference on management of the Cenotaph area and the work that the Military Ames folks do. Just wanted to get an update of where we are with that.
Yeah, the park in general, when everything was put together there was never any formal agreements. It's my understanding I was just kind of coming on board at that time, but ideally there would be some kind of a license of occupation or license agreement that would set the terms for what happens on that site. That doesn't exist at this point in time.
Could that be further? Sorry, could that be something that we could just implement into the work that we were doing for the I guess it would be the letter of consideration. Just seems like it would make it easier for both them and for us if we had just a better understanding of what both entities do.
Yeah, I think it would probably be best with something like that if it was done as a separate project. But if that's something the council's interested in doing, I think that's something that should be in place in any event, and it's just something that hasn't happened yet. So if council is interested in providing direction to for staff to bring back a report, essentially as a first step that discusses implementing or putting in place some kind of a license agreement that defines the terms and responsibilities.
Yeah, so further to that, I don't think there's any hurry, but I think that would probably be a worthwhile endeavor. So,
Not necessarily tied to the specific request, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that make it easy for staff, easier to split the two.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Roberts?
So the question then becomes if we're just gonna name that little piece of laneway behind the cenotaph, or is that gonna be the name of the road that goes all the way down to infinity at the other end?
It's the laneway.
Yeah, I understand. It goes behind, goes all the way across the Platzel and all the way down there. So they just want to name that little piece.
Across the Platzel.
Yeah.
It's a road. It goes right through. Yeah. Behind the,
Yeah, so this is in behind the monuments?
yeah, but it's the same road all the way along is the
Yeah,
point.
okay.
So the question is, what
That-
are they
So
referring to?
staff are coming back with a report and a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we can table the question, that'd be awesome. I'll have to, go ahead.
Because I'm just, and I guess it's maybe not clear in the letter, because that laneway, I know a thing or two about it. Part of that laneway is not actually a laneway, it's a city lot, correct? Like where the city staff all park, like that's an actual like lot that at some point in time, there's probably a building on. So I guess that would be my question about this, is that like, because people drive through there all the time, and I guess it's just sort of like a whatever kind of thing, but if this was going to be like named something, what does that look like? Are we then taking this lot and turning it into roadway formally, or et cetera, et cetera? And I guess that's obviously probably also a question for staff, because
Yeah,
none of
no,
us can
fair
answer that, but that's just something I was wondering about when I read it.
It's
Yeah,
not
I
quite-
think-
It's not quite as straightforward as it would appear.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing ever is, but I think those are all good considerations for the staff report when it's brought back.
Okay. Yep. So call the question. All those in favor of this for the direction of the staff? Yeah, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Finally, call the question on correspondence receipt. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Go ahead, Sue.
Just on the correspondence received from Forestry as a Solution, there's a request to council for endorsement there, and I just wanted to express that I would not be in support of that. Okay, so that's still coming?
No, we've just received it. We received it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we have several items in camera this evening. Before we go there, does anybody wish to talk about any activities that have cropped up this past couple of weeks? Nothing specific? All right. Go ahead, Sue. Under the wire?
Just in terms of the Marysville School crossing, and just, wanting to understand meetings that are underway with MOTT. Is there an update available? Is there a traffic light being discussed? I remember there was some conversation quite some time ago about this, and I don't remember where it landed. And I guess, if there's discussion underway, are there meeting minutes? How do we get updates on that? And also, it would be really interesting to know if there are numbers on when, if a traffic light is not being discussed, when does that occur? Because our numbers are pretty high for the traffic that's passing through there, and it's really hard to stop traffic when it's flowing as steadily as it is at this point.
Nick, do you want to make a comment on conversations that have gone on?
Sure. So we met with MOTT back in, was it February? This was on the list of many other items. And at the time, they were trying to confirm funding and looking at options for pedestrian controlled crossing. So not necessarily like a traffic light, but a pedestrian controlled activated crossing. They recognize that it doesn't necessarily meet the warrants to put one in there, but with the cities advocating for it and the school advocating for it and the location of where it's at with the school, they do see the benefit of putting one in there. So we're waiting on confirmation of funding was where it was last left off. And I do have a meeting with the ministry next week, so we can request an update at that time.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Go ahead.
One more question. At the last meeting, it just came up around Sergeant Biggs was reporting on the RCMP priorities, establishing the RCMP annual priorities. And I just wondered, when does that occur and who from the city participates in that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, it was, I've talked to corporate admin about this and we're going to, my recommendation is that Councillor Biggs come and have a conversation with City Council about that, setting those priorities. So that's, we'll have to have some back and forth with him to set a date, but.
That's it. All right. Thanks, Councillor Cairns. Awesome. Okay, we did already. No, we didn't. A motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Dunneback, thank you. Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We'll take 2 minutes.